Welcome back to Pace Immigration, paceimmigration.com, talking once again with immigration lawyer Michael O'Rourke. Michael, good to see you.
Hey, Sean, how's it going?
It's going great. Let's talk about helping some people out that might find themselves in some dire straits. Today we're talking Canada Connection, solutions for laid off H-1B workers. We recorded another video last week about what laid off H-1B workers can do to stay in the United States. This is a bit of a different tack that might help them out. A little bit of background on this. I've got this from NPR. This is a recent article. About 50,000 tech workers lost their jobs last month at various companies. A 2018 report found that more than 70% of tech workers in Silicon Valley were born in another country. It's not a stretch to think that a lot of those people were in the United States on H-1B visas. Is that right, Michael?
Yes, that's true. The H-1B is the workhorse of Silicon Valley.
Yeah, so we'll do a little bit of background, or obviously the people that might be searching for this information know exactly what an H-1B is, but we'll do a quick primer in case someone stumbled across it and they want to know about it. What is the H-1B in a nutshell?
So the H-1B is for a specialty worker to come into the United States. And a specialty worker is a term of art in U.S. immigration law. It means somebody who generally has a bachelor's degree or higher, who works in a well-defined field. And a lot of our H-1Bs in the U.S. are tech workers.
Right. You see the H-1B a lot right now, obviously, with the layoffs. People are really worried about what's going to happen to them if and when they are laid off. Michael, go into that. We talked about it in our U.S. video, but let's do that again here.
Sure. So there is a law called AC 21, and it provides a 60-day grace period for anybody who is on an H-1B to find a new employer. And if you are lucky enough to find a new employer, that employer can file a petition, and we would always suggest filing the petition with premium processing, but the employer can file a petition to port your H-1B over to that employer. If you do have a job offer and if the petition is filed within that 60-day grace period, then the H-1B worker can start as soon as the petition is received by USCIS at the new employer.
Right. And we went into it a little bit. We posted it on LinkedIn. There were people that also had some different ideas on how people could stay in the country. But in a nutshell, if you're on an H-1B, being laid off is a big deal.
Oh, yeah, it's huge. Losing a job anytime is awful.
True.
It's traumatic. But when your entire existence in a country that you've built up a life, friends, a career is threatened, it's really traumatic. So if you can't port your H-1B over to a new employer within the 60 days, you might be able to look at other visa options, say O1 for extraordinary ability. If that doesn't work out, you might be able to change to a non-work authorized immigrant or non-immigrant status, such as a B1, or if you enroll back in school as an F1. Right. But a lot of times that doesn't work either, or isn't satisfying, especially if you want to move your career forward.
Exactly. I mean, people are here, they want to work. They want their career to progress. So this Canadian connection that we're talking about might give them that. It might, it's not staying in the United States, but at least it's still furthering their career in North America, staying close to contacts in the United States, and perhaps with a vision of getting back to the U.S. Let's talk about these Canadian possibilities. You rattled off a bunch to me. I put a couple of the highlights here, but we can go into as many as you want. But the Global Skills Strategy, what's that about?
Yeah, so Global Skills Strategy is a program by the Government of Canada where it recognizes that the Canadian economy needs tech workers. And the government has committed to very fast processing times, or if I want to be Canadian about it, processing times, and to the tune of being able to process these applications within 2 weeks. If there are a number of different knock codes, and that's a Canadian term of art for a specific job code related to certain jobs within the economy.
Right.
They're most always tech jobs. But global skills strategy is kind of a fast track into a work permit and other longer term immigration options in Canada.
Does that so if it's a fast track? Is it still based upon an offer of employment, or how does it work?
Yes, it's always based on an offer of employment. Both the US and the Canadian systems revolve highly when you're an economic immigrant to, in the short term, to having a job offer.
Right. So this person, they're laid off, or think that they might be, and I keep on hinting this in other videos, but we'll say it outright that if you think there might be trouble on the horizon, you should look at these options now and get some ducks in a row. But if you apply to an employer in Canada, I'm assuming that employer has to be somewhat savvy and know about this program.
Well, some employers do, but the employers, they do their thing, whether they're making widgets or writing software. I don't know what they do, but they
Right.
do all sorts of things. My clients come from everywhere.
Right.
They might not know what's current in immigration law. So employees are always able to come and talk with us, and we can give them an idea of what available options and what available programs are out there,
Okay.
so that they can get the people that they want to get quickly and hopefully painlessly.
Right. Okay. So that's the global skills strategy. The intracompany transfer. I know you're big on this. You handle a lot of these cases.
Yeah, I love the ICTs, or their L1s in the US. It's basically if you've worked one of the last 3 years in an affiliated company, you can come into Canada as an intercompany transfer, either as an executive slash manager or as a specialized knowledge employee. It's a similar type of setup as in the US, where executives and managers get 7 years of total visa time. Specialized knowledge employees get 5 years. But if, say, you're working for Amazon in the US and you're able to get a job offer from Amazon in Canada, and the various affiliates are affiliated. That sounds terrible, Sean. But if your company is affiliated with Amazon Canada, and we can show that there's ownership and control, then yeah, we can transfer you up. And oftentimes, depending on your nationality, you're able to make an application right at the border as you're coming in.
What's the length of time on something like that? Like, let's say the boss says, "Hey, you know what? We've got to let you go down here, but we do know that the office in Canada needs someone." How soon can that happen?
Well, if the employer can get their ducks in the row, we can usually turn around an application in a couple weeks, maybe even sooner, depending on the needs. But it's usually a matter of making sure that the employer has everything lined up in terms of job offer, in terms of actually having a good written job description. And the larger companies always have these. Smaller companies, sometimes we have to work with the employer to really flesh out a job description. But
Okay.
once we do that, there's an employer compliance portion. It's kind of an online job offer that we need to file to make sure that either the outside of Canada work permit or the work permit application at the border is processed. And because it's a government, they want to make sure that their fees are paid.
Right. You mentioned a couple of others. I think there was a French angle as well as like CP, TP. You always throw out the alphabet soup at me. So maybe go into a couple of those briefly.
Sure. So there are to back up for a second.
Sure.
The LMIA, labor market impact assessment. That is the standard route for getting a work permit in Canada, and that is a long and laborious process that can take a while. So we're always looking for LMIA exemptions, and one of the really good ones is mobility francophone. So it's a work permit based on uh, augmenting French speakers into areas outside of Quebec. So, say you have an employer in Ontario, doesn't matter if you're actually going to be working in French on a daily basis, but if your language that you speak at home, if you're a native French speaker, mobility francophone's a way to go, or it's one of the ways to go.
Okay.
If you are a European Union citizen, Canada has a free trade agreement with the EU. They also have one with Britain after Brexit. And those folks can come in on LMIA exempt CETA work permits, depending on the job category.
Right.
CPTPP, which is it always has too many P's, and I always add a couple extra just to be
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah.
But that is the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, and that covers a lot of the Pacific Rim countries. So, say you're in Japan or New Zealand or Chile or Mexico, Singapore, there are special work permit, LMIA exempt work permits that you can get through that. So there are so many different programs in Canada that we're fairly confident we can usually find a way to figure out how to avoid the LMIA and get you a work permit fairly quickly.
Yeah, I mean, one way or the other, it's worth a consultation, because
Exactly.
you can pepper some people with some questions and learn more about their life, and then something they're not even thinking about, like their ability to speak French, and you're like, aha, there it is, and you can help. That French one is really interesting. We haven't talked about that one before.
No, we should do a video. And
yeah,
I'll even do it in French if you want.
Yeah, we'll do something. I mean, it's funny when I talk to you. I always kind of kick myself. I wasn't very good at French in high school. I should have stuck with it. And parents, if you're out there, make sure your kids learn a language. It's very, very powerful stuff to have that in your back pocket. Okay, Michael, what else you got? Is that about it?
Yeah, that's about it. Since everybody is unique and every case is different, as I always love to tell Sean, it is important to sit down with a professional, whether it's me or one of my colleagues, and just work through the facts and, give us your situation. Tell us what is going on, and whether you do have a job offer from a Canadian employer, or if you're doing that dance with an employer. We can sit down and figure out the routes that you might be able to come up to Canada. And
okay.
Even though your H-1B might be ending in the U.S. and you can't find an employer because of the layoffs in your sector, our economy is different up here, so there is a possibility that Canada is an option for you.
Excellent. All right, Michael, thanks for this. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds great, Sean. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.